Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I've got some Dollar Tree Easter DIYs for you. These DIYs are celebrating and acknowledging the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We're using some Dollar Tree items mixed in with a few other either Hobby Lobby or Dollar General clearance, thrifted items, that kind of thing, but things that you can definitely find on a budget. Let's get started. For this first one, I picked up this sign from Dollar General. It was originally $1. I'm sure I got it marked down because I usually do. Dollar General has really good clearance finds all the time, and but I really like the sign. But it's only $1. They have these types of signs all the time. So I taped off the wood border because I wanted to keep that, and I went first with a chippy brush, trying to give a little bit of texture, thinking that that would maybe help. This takes a couple different forms. I then went in with a sponge pouncer brush and kind of pounced it, then I dragged it. Basically, I did not want the brush strokes of a paintbrush, and eventually I achieved that. But I'm using the color Celery by Waverly Chalk Paint. I really enjoy that color for spring, but also it incorporates well into just my everyday decor, so I thought it'd be pretty to use for Easter. So I gave that a couple coats, and then I'm going to go in with this stencil from the Dollar Tree, and I took the celery, well, hang on, we'll get there in a second, I guess. I'm going to tape off the part that I don't want to use because I didn't want to get, paint where I didn't need it. And I'm taking the celery paint and adding in a little bit of white. That container was an old container of white paint that I had watered down a little bit, and I'm just trying to use it up. So I just went for a slightly lighter shade of the celery, and I'm just going to use a pouncer brush. Make sure you don't have too much paint on it so it doesn't bleed through. And this is going to dry down quite a bit. You're going to see there's not a huge difference in the shades of paint. I just made sure that there was no paint on the back side of the stencil before I placed it back down so that I wasn't smearing any paint. If there was, I would just wipe it off with a damp paper towel or a baby wipe. I'm going to use my heat gun to dry it in between so that I don't smear the paint so that I can keep doing this. But I'm just wanting to create a backdrop with a little bit of a pattern, but a subtle pattern because I didn't want to detract from the words we're going to put on here. I do find the key with these stencils is to keep them clean. So as soon as I'm done, I'm wiping it down. And then we're going to use that other floral or greenery pattern, whatever you would call that, and just scatter that throughout. So like I said, I'm just doing a patterned background, but I wanted to not have it too busy or too dominant because we're going to put some words on this. And then I did decide to paint the side as well. Not necessary, but I did. And then I have this decal, Worthy is the Lamb. My friend had sent this to me. I don't have a Cricut, but she had sent this to me, Kendra, over at Late Night Creations. I talk about her a lot. You should check her out. And this was obviously perfect for an Easter DIY. So I'm just going to apply the decal, but you could also stencil some words. I also think you can probably buy some of these like on Etsy, just different options if you don't have a Cricut, but you can definitely use a stencil, print something out, and we're just going to apply that. And that's it for this sign. Very simple and pretty. For this next DIY, I also have another sign from the Dollar General, and then I also have this pack of words that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. It comes with 8 different words, and it was $2.99 at regular price, but I got it for 40% off or 50% off, I don't remember. And then I have this wooden skewer. They're just from a large pack from the Dollar Tree that I keep in my stash, and we're just going to cut them down to make the size of a cross, so whatever size you want. I did trim it a couple times. And then I'm going to paint this with some white paint. I am going to just dry it so I can grab it from the other end, and we're just going to paint that up. I wanted it to pop against the sign, and I thought that white would do better, but then I did not want it to be like a stark white. Do paint the tips there where you cut it so that you don't have the wood showing there. So I went in with a little bit of antique wax as well, just like a dry brush, because I wanted to not have it just like a stark white. And then I'm going to put a little dab of glue to get that started and glue that. And then we're going to also just take some twine and put a little bit of glue and wrap that around. And I did like a crisscross on that to help make it more stable than just the hot glue. And I just kind of did it a couple of times. And then we're going to tie a knot or two and put a little dab of glue inside of that to help hold that. Now, the sign that we're using on our base with the what's it called? Like the chicken wire backdrop of it, that had farm animals on it that I pulled off and used for a different DIY. But the sign altogether is just $1 at Dollar General, even at their regular price. And it's a really great option. You know, gives you a couple different DIYs out of it. And you can often find them at the end of the season marked down, so even better. This Forgiven word is a little bit of an off-white, so I'm just doing a light coat of white paint just to help it, I don't know, it's not necessary. You paint that whatever color you want or leave it as is. We're going to just put a little bit of hot glue on this. This is a very quick and easy DIY, and we're going to glue that into the center, and then I'm just going to glue this little cross in the corner, and I put the bulk of the glue at the top there, and then I'm going to put just a tiny little dab to attach that to the top of the word, just to help hold that in place, and then just scraping off any excess glue. Very simple sign, but I thought it was very pretty and simple. And it only cost a couple of bucks. This next sign, this is from the Dollar Tree. It originally had a natural wood trim, and then you have the chalkboard center. I previously used it for a DIY, so I had painted it white. So I'm just going in once again with that celery chalk paint. Actually, I think this is the muted one with a little bit of white in there because I had it left over from a previous DIY. But I do use a lot of that celery in my decor. So we're just going to paint the border of this sign in the celery color. I think I gave it maybe 2 coats. And then I have this sheet music. This is from an old hymnal that is falling apart. I understand that some people have a problem with that. I feel like I always have to explain myself. It is, I don't see this as, I don't know, wrong to do that. The pages are ripped. Some of them are stuck together, and it would probably just be thrown out. But you can also print off some sheet music if you'd like. I used a wet paper towel to kind of soften the edges as I tore it. You can also use a wet paintbrush with just some water, but I didn't have a lot of space to pull some off here, so I'm just kind of roughing up the edges because I wanted it all to look torn instead of just part of it to look torn. You can leave crisp, clean edges if you like, but I wanted a little bit more of the torn edges, plus, like I said, one of the edges was already torn. And then I decided there would be a little bit of the edges peeking in, so I did go across this and put a couple coats of the chalk paint on the edges just so that it would all blend in well. And then I have these letters. They are a cardboard sticker. I believe they are from the Dollar Tree, and they were originally black, and I painted them white at some point, and I'm painting them celery. And then I took this Risen word from the pack from Hobby Lobby, and I'm painting this in the celery as well. I just wanted it to pop out more from the sheet music, and I thought that the white would blend in too much. And you're going to see we're going to actually change this up a little bit, but I wanted to take you along for the process. So I'm taking a little file. I wasn't recording, so I'm just showing you what I did, and sanded that off a little bit. I wanted them to look a little more worn, and then I also did that to the edge of the frame. And then I'm taking some antique wax, and we're doing a dry brush. We're going to do that around the edge of the frame. Not a whole lot here, just a little bit. But I just didn't want it to be like a crisp green, crisp white. I wanted it to just look a little bit more distressed and worn. And I'm going to put a little bit on the background here too. And then I'm going to go in a little bit heavier on the edge of the paper. Once again, just trying to help it stand out. And I just enjoy that rough farmhouse rustic look. If you don't like that, you can omit some of these steps. But and then I wanted to go across the top of the page a little bit. Then I was like, you know what? I need to crumple this up and make it look older. And then when you go across, again, very lightly with the antique wax, it kind of highlights the rough edges. We're going to flatten this out again here, but you will still see all of the creases in the paper from where we crumpled it. So I'm going to go in with a nice coat of Mod Podge on the background here, and I'm going to let that thoroughly dry because we are going to do the iron-on method. But in this, I placed the words on the paper and was like, it just isn't standing out enough. So I'm going to go around the edges of the words with the antique Waverly wax, or Waverly wax in the color Antique, sorry. And I'm going to do that on all of the letters. And first I kind of just did the edges, but as I continued on, well, you're going to see here. We're going to iron on our paper. So I'm placing that, putting down some parchment paper, making sure that I hadn't shifted the paper at all so that it was still centered. And I'm using this handy dandy iron. This is from HTV Ront. You can also use your Cricut iron, but I don't have a Cricut. So when they offered to send this to me, I was thrilled. And this reactivates the Mod Podge and you get a nice smooth finish. Now, I couldn't quite get into all of the corners with the iron, so I'm just going to do a little bit of Mod Podge here on the edges to fully seal that down. So yes, ironing it on will flatten out the paper again, but like I said, you can still see the creases from where I had crinkled the page, which was the main purpose of crinkling it, just to make it look a little bit old and worn. And as I was laying out my words where I wanted them to look, I was like, no, this just blends in too much. It looks too similar to the border. So I went in again with a Waverly wax and I just did a heavier coat. So it doesn't fully look brown. You can still see the green, but you can just do this however you want, whatever looks good to you. Once I had the desired look, I'm going in with my hot glue gun and I'm just trying to put a thin amount because I didn't want it like creeping out from the edges. You could also use like a super glue gel or any glue adhesive that you have that just like it has like a finer tip. You could probably even use Mod Podge, but I was using my hot glue here. Just put it on the thicker portions of the word. We're going to put that down at the bottom and center that. But you can, of course, lay these words out however you want in whatever pattern or design looks good to you. This little crooked sharp tool, it's a Cricut tool, but it's like the Dollar Tree version, is very good at scraping out glue. I was just being very careful as to not tear the paper. So these little words are a sticker, but I wanted to add a little extra glue to help. I wasn't sure how sticky the sticker part would be, so I just put a dab of hot glue and then place each of those down. And that was all I did for this DIY. And you could also just use like a blank sign of any kind if you didn't have this particular frame, but it is on a little bit of an easel and has a little stand on it. So I love how this one came out. This next sign, it's from the Dollar Tree. It had a chalkboard center and the stand and the border were all just a natural wood. I had previously painted these, so I don't remember if I'm reusing this or if I had started a project and didn't finish it. But either way, I liked the bottom being white, so I left that. And I'm going to paint once again with the color celery for the border of this. And I was trying to not get it on the front part of this, but we are going to end up covering it. So sometimes when I start my DIYs, I'm not sure exactly every detail of how this is going to go. So I was just being really careful to not get paint down on the front part. So I did a couple coats of celery and then the painter's tape, taking that off, left my bottom nice and white, which was great, but we are going to still rough this up just a little bit. I'm going in with some sandpaper and I'm just kind of going along the edges, sandpaper, and then also switching to an emery board. And I'm really just doing the edges, and I liked that I had previously painted this white because then the white was coming through, but if not, the wood would come through. And then I tried to go heavier on some spots so a little bit of that natural wood would also come through. And then I have this cardstock. This is from a large pack from large pack from Hobby Lobby. And there, I don't even know how many sheets of paper, but it's a very good price. You'll get lots of use out of it. And I just measured that and cut that down. I'm just making sure it's going to fit in here, but then we're going to pop it out. We will come back to that in a minute. And then I have these crosses. They're, I guess they're like little ornaments because they're on a hanger. I picked these up from Hobby Lobby. Great deal. I'm doing several of these. We're only going to use one of these crosses in this DIY, but I was like, I'm probably going to need to fill in the hole for some future DIYs, so I did a couple of them. But I just took some lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree. Mine is kind of old, so I mix in a tiny bit of water, and we're just going to fill in the hole on both sides. Let that dry. Once it's dry, just smooth it out, and you'll never know the hole was there. That works very easily, and we're going to paint that with, I'm just using this Territorial Beige. It's just a brown I had in my stash. I thought about using the antique wax, but I wasn't sure if the antique wax would go over the spackled spot as well. Like if you'd be able to see like the little outline of the circle. So I just went with this brown paint that I had on hand. I was careful to not get the edges because I liked the color of the edges of these pieces, of this piece rather. I mean, there were many of them, but I'm only using one of them in this DIY. But once again, you know, do whatever colors you want, guys. You don't have to use my color palettes. This is just for inspiration. And then I'm just using a little bit of that paint to, once again, kind of age and distress this sign. Feel free to do this however you want, as much as you want. If yours started out with the wood base and you hadn't painted it, you could have stained it, however you want to do that. So we're going to go in with some Mod Podge to attach our paper. Now, I'm not doing the iron-on method here because the paper I'm using is a very thick cardstock, so it really is not prone to like wrinkling up and yeah, getting all wrinkled. I had put a little too much Mod Podge down, so I don't want to waste it. We're going to scrape that back into the bottle. And then because I'd gotten a little bit of it on the edge and I wanted to make sure that it all had the same finish, I'm just applying some Mod Podge to the front of the sign so that it all looked the same. We're going to just simply place that in there. If you do not have this handy tool, it's very handy. It is from Plaid, which is the creator of Mod Podge, and it's like a rubber squeegee. And I was just pressing in all of the corners and edges, and it, as you can see, is kind of squeegeed out any excess Mod Podge, and I just kind of wiped that off of it on my hand or on my mat. But you could also use a little scraper tool from Dollar Tree or like a credit card or something. And then we're going to take our cross and just hot glue that on the center here. And I wasn't sure if I was going to just end there. I was like, this kind of is nice, but I wanted a little bit of a detail. So once I got that placed and centered, you can see the wood grain through the cross or through the paint, and I loved that. But I had picked up these Valentine decor pieces. I picked these up afterwards. This is post Valentine's Day. I got them 66% off. They're going to go in my Valentine's stash, but I pulled one of them out. I thought this would be a nice addition, and I'm just using a little pair of tweezers to hold it while I use some super glue gel to apply that to the center of the cross. Now I did that because the it takes a little longer to dry, but my hot glue, I knew I couldn't, my hot glue gun tip is not small enough. So that's why I use a super glue gel, but anything with a smaller tip would be handy. And I just place a bottle of paint on it to help it dry or hold it in place while it dries. And that's it for this one. For this next DIY, I'm using this sign that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It was on clearance for 69 cents, but you can certainly use something from the Dollar Tree or a thrift store, or sometimes when I have old signs around my house that I've used in my decor that I'm no longer liking as much, I'll just make them over. So I'm just going to give this, I do it off camera because I didn't want to get sand in my area because I had paint drying, but I gave it a rough sand just because, or a light sand I guess you could say. The edges were rough, and I just wanted to smooth it out, and then I sanded the front just a little bit, but I really didn't need to sand that very much. I got very good coverage. It was not hard to cover up the writing. And I'm just going to give this, once again, a couple coats of Waverly's chalk paint in the color Celery. That's my theme. That's the colors I'm using, but do what you like. I did try to keep the paint off of the backside because I didn't want to paint that. And I saw this idea somewhere, but I did not have instructions on how to do this. So I'm going to just show you how I do it. We're going to hot glue some jute twine on the back, and we're going to make ourselves a cross. But I realized that I cut a couple of pieces to kind of feed through the middle here. You're going to see just a second. I'm going to all of a sudden remember that I need to do that. Come on, Leanne. I wasn't sure. Like I said, I just saw an image. I didn't see like instructions on how to do this. So we're going to do the crisscross. There we go. I've got a couple pieces of twine. I ended up only needing one of them, but I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do this. So I stuck two of them in there. And I'm just doing a crisscross, and I'm trying to just keep it even. We're going to gather the center. You'll see in a second. We're just going to hot glue the beginning and the end of it, trim that down, and then I'm going to go back to the front and just readjust it. So obviously with a cross, you want it gathered more towards the top versus the center. So I'm going to use the piece of twine. Once I kind of get these all in place and centered, we're going to gather it wherever it looks right to you. There's no science here. But I just like to show you the process because sometimes you can see an image, see something like a home decor piece or something on Pinterest, and you're like, I don't know how to do that. just try it. Just try it. A little dab of hot glue. Going to take one of those little pieces and tie it in a knot. And then we're going to do the same thing going the opposite way. We're going to go horizontal here at the top, and I'm just fanning it out so you have it wider at the edges and work your way in. So I just go crisscross here, and then the back, of course, doesn't look as pretty, but I don't think it looks like bad. But you can see I'm just wrapping that around, and this is when I end up realizing that I don't end up needing the second piece of twine that I put underneath there. But like I said, I wasn't really sure how this was going to all turn out. So snip that down, hot glue it, keep it nice and tight. That is kind of important there. Once you have it, you can still move it around a little bit, but you want it tight so it doesn't sag. And then I'm just going to use that same piece of twine, another dab of hot glue, and tie that off. And then I was like, I didn't know if I was going to leave it there, but then I thought it'd be nice to add in the 3 nails representing the 3 nails used on the cross. And I just have a stash of I don't know, it's like a home kit. It's got fuses, nails, little things to hang things up with. And I just went in there and found a couple of 3 small nails, once again using a little bit of hot glue and using my scraper tool, a little hook to get off any excess glue. And then I just tied off that, but I put some glue underneath there because I didn't want to double knot it on top because I didn't want it to be too bulky. So I just used some hot glue to help secure that. And then I'm using my lighter to kind of get off some of the fuzzies. And that was kind of it. It also gives it a nice little rustic look on the twine, which I love that look. And that was it. That was it for this one. So let me know what you think about it. I was really pleased with this one as well. And I thought these all kind of came out well and work well together in my decor since I went with the same color scheme through all of them. All right, so for our next DIY, I have this sign that I picked up from Hobby Lobby clearance. I paid 79 cents for it, and it was a good, firm piece, great structure, so that's pretty much what I look for. I'm going to sand this down so that the print doesn't poke through as much. I'm going to use my little vacuum to get the dust and use a baby wipe to clean it off. Now, if I had sanded it better, maybe a higher grit, lower grit, a tougher sandpaper, I can never remember how that goes, or like an electric sander, I probably would have needed 3 coats of paint. But nonetheless, I painted this with Waverly chalk paint in the color white. Just got my brand new bottle of white chalk paint. So yeah, I'm actually using up some colors. That's nice. And I'm just going to let that thoroughly dry in between, but I just wanted a nice plain base. We're going to do a combo of rub-on transfers from the Dollar Tree and then some stickers. These particular stickers, I believe, are from Hobby Lobby. As you can see, I had previously painted some of them too. You can paint stickers. And I'm using my little tool once again to get them lined up. And I always start in the middle and work my way out if I want it centered. That just helps. Once again, just push down the bottoms of the letters until you have them placed where you want them. And then we're going to apply our rub-on transfers. And when you're applying these, you just want to, some of them, these transferred really easy. So I just using my little scraper tool, being very careful to not scrape the paint like outside of where the little transfer is that I'm doing. And just pulling it up slowly to make sure it's all transferring well. And like I said, these ones transferred really, really easily. So I put on He Is Risen, and I wanted to keep this one simple, but I did want something added on here. So I'm going in with a pencil. You do not have to be artistic. I'm not super artistic, but I had found an image of the 3 crosses on the hill, kind of like an outline image, and just I jotted it down, sketched it down on a piece of paper for me to look at while I did this. And then we're going to go in with the Hippie acrylic paint markers. They sent those to me a couple months ago. I will leave a link for them down in the description box for you if you are interested. And you just shake them up. And that wasn't the first time I used this one, so I didn't really have to work the paint down to the tip. And drawing over, but it's paint, but I'm basically just drawing over my pencil marks. And this was super easy to do. I love these paint markers. I need to use them more often. And I just kind of carefully, this is sped up. I took my time, went over them till I just had it looking the way I wanted it.
I wasn't sure how thick I wanted to do like the hill portion, so at one point I paused and let the paint dry for a moment and then went and looked at a couple more images. Again, here's a much clearer picture. See, that's focused nice. Um, just because I just wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do it. So I just look at pictures to get ideas. And once the paint is dry, you could seal this whole thing with Mod Podge if you wanted to help keep the stickers on, but I didn't. I just kind of did it like this. And I thought about adding some twine kind of wrapped around the edge of the sign or something just to add another detail, but I really just liked the simplicity of this one and let the message speak for itself. But there's lots of varieties of ways you could do this. So here is my He is Risen sign. For this DIY, we are going to use one of these cross, I guess they're ornaments. They're from Hobby Lobby. They came in a pack with several in them in their Easter decor. Great deal. I just took some lightweight spackling from the Dollar Tree and filled in the hole. Let that dry, sand it down to smooth it out. And we're going to give this a coat of white paint. I ended up doing 2 coats, but that's because the first coat was with this watered down white paint that I've been trying to work through, and because it wasn't as because it was watered down, you could still see like the hole that I had patched up. So I went in with a regular coat of white paint and that covered it up beautifully. While the cross is drying, we're going to take this wreath form from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a 2-pack. They're mini wreaths and some burlap ribbon, and wrap that around. I previously had done this for another DIY. That's why you can kind of see some hot glue marks on the ribbon. And then I have picked up this pack of words from Hobby Lobby. It was $2.99 for 8 different words. Well, 4 different words, 2 of each, and plus it was on sale. So a really great price. And then I just pulled out some greenery scraps and the cross, and we're going to make ourselves a cute little mini wreath. So right now I'm just kind of playing with it all, trying to decide where I want to place everything on the wreath. And I am going to be covering up where the previous hot glue was. Sometimes I just do that because I make a lot of DIYs for my videos. So I'll use the DIYs for a little bit and then I'll take them apart and reuse some of the items. So I just like this greenery. It's just scraps from something. I don't even remember where from, but most of my greenery, most of my floral pieces come from Walmart or Dollar Tree, and then occasionally some seasonal stuff from Hobby Lobby. And then I just glued that on, and then I wanted to make a little bow to cover up where the greenery met. So I'm going to just do a very simple bow. I'm using some raffia, and I'm just going to wrap it several times around my fingers. I'm going to use a few different pieces just until I get the thickness that I wanted. This bow is going to be very simple. It doesn't have a tail on it or anything. I slid it off my fingers and took another piece of raffia and tied it in the middle using some hot glue to secure it because raffia can like break when you're tying it. So I wanted to make sure there was hot glue holding that all together. And then I'm just going to trim off some of these little stragglers. It's a very like messy bow. It's not a polished look. It's a little bit more rustic looking. And then I'm going to put a good amount of hot glue on the back to attach that, which will also help hold the raffia together. And I thought that was a cute addition. I did have some problems with this word. I was hot gluing it down, just kind of hot gluing it where I knew it would make contact. And apparently I was just not very gentle with it. You're going to see here in a second, I broke it. So it's okay, we figured it out. I was going a little bit quick here. I probably would have been better off taking it off, using some wood glue and gluing it together, letting it dry, and then attaching it. But I just fudged it with some hot glue, and it worked fine. It's still attached. It's still doing what it needs to do. But just wanted to leave this in there for you because this is what happens sometimes, but you don't have to give up and walk away from it. Almost always it is redeemable. So I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue on. Again, it's not touching base like on the whole wreath, so just in a few spots where I know it's going to make contact. And then we're going to get that in there really good, kind of holding the place where it broke together so that it lays nicely and you can't really tell. And then same thing with the cross. And that's it for the wreath. We're going to just put a little bit of glue to, some of the greenery was a little wild, so I used a little hot glue to tame that. And then for a hanger, I'm just going to make a little loop with a knot on it with some twine and hot glue that on the back. I didn't want it to be like super seen from the back when it was hung up, so I just kept that super simple. And that is it for that wreath. I hope that you enjoyed it. I love how this one came out. I think it's really sweet. For this next one, I have a picture frame from the Dollar Tree. I've had this around for a while, but you can use any frame you want, really of any size. And I love this wood texture on this one. So I'm just going to do like a light dry brushing with some white paint. This is once again a watered down white paint that I'm just trying to kind of use up. And I did go along the sides too. The sides don't have the same texture, but I just brushed it on, wiped it off, and I liked this look. I wanted to brighten up the frame a little bit and not have it as dark. And then I'm going to use some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut a strip to go from top to bottom. You do want a rectangular picture frame for this, but any size would do. And then I'm just going to fold mine. I folded it like this just to make it easier to cut, but I'm cutting off the wired edge because one, I don't want a wired ribbon, and I wanted a little bit more of a frayed edge. And this was a ribbon I had on hand, so I was like, I'll just cut off the wired edge, no problem. And it was that easy. And then I'm just straightening this up, trying to make sure it is in the middle. And we're going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back, just a little bit. And just be careful because obviously the hot glue will go through the ribbon. I'm just using a little silicone spatula, but you can use the finger protectors or something else to press that down. And then I do trim off any excess ribbon just to make it nice and clean here on the back. I did pull off a few extra little strings there to fray it a little bit more. And then we're going to go ahead and do another burlap ribbon, the same thing where I cut off the wired edges, and we did it the opposite way to make it look like a cross. And then I'm using those wire pieces that I cut off to do a crisscross tie in the front, and I just twisted it in the back. I was trying to scrunch up the center of the cross a little bit. It didn't work super great because I had pulled the ribbon nice and taut, but it did help pull it in a little bit. And then for some embellishment, I have this wood heart from the Dollar Tree. It's from years ago. As you could see, it was red and glittery on one side. I'm going to use the back side. I just peeled the sticker off of it and then put some Mod Podge on it. We're going to let that dry. And then I have some scrap music paper here, and I'm just ripping off some of the music notes, and I'm giving it a nice torn edge. And we're going to Mod Podge this onto the heart, but I just wanted to show you how I was doing it. You could just take a whole piece and like put it on there, but it was so small that I feel like you wouldn't really be able to, I don't know, get the full idea. So we're just going with the music notes themselves, and I'm piecing it together, and ended up looking really, or at least in my opinion, it ended up looking really nice in the end. And so we're doing the iron-on method with the Mod Podge, where you let the Mod Podge dry and then use some parchment paper, and I'm using my little mini iron, mini heat press. This is from HTV Ront. I love this little thing. And you can use a household iron. I've done that before, just don't have any steam in it. But this little iron is very handy because it's smaller and I can keep it in my craft area. And I just did a few rows at a time. I just found it easier to place everything there without them like shifting around. And then I just cut it down in the center and used an emery board. You can use a piece of sandpaper or sanding block to sand away to get the excess off of it. And I love how this came out. I enjoy using like music notes or paper or whatever in my DIYs. So that's what I did. But you could easily just paint this or put some scrapbook paper. Anyways, moving on for some more embellishment, I picked this berry garland from the Dollar Tree. I mean, it was in my stash, but that's where I bought it from. Although Hobby Lobby has had this stuff as well. I've heard it called pitberry, but I think the tag at the Dollar Tree is berry garland. And I'm just going to curl the ends of it. I'm just using the end of whatever I had near me to make some little curly cues and then stretching them out. And then I'm hot gluing in some of those white berries because they fell out. So I was just reattaching it there and using a little hot glue. Be careful, you know, don't burn yourself. And then we're going to hot glue that to the center of the cross and put the heart on top of it. Once again, be careful. The hot glue will go through the burlap ribbon. And then I thought about leaving it open with like nothing in the back, but I wanted this to be able to stand up, so I didn't want it to just be like a leaner sign. So I cut down some scrapbook paper and put that in there. And I didn't love the wood look. Maybe it's because I needed it to be going the other direction. So I just flipped it over, had a white background. I did put the glass in there just for stability, but the paper was in the front because I didn't want anything glossy. And this way it's a freestanding piece, and I love how this one came out. I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments. All right, up next, I'm pulling out a fun tool. This is not sponsored. This is from Walmart. My husband got this for me for Christmas because I asked for it. It's like 10 bucks. It's a wood burning tool. I was a little bit nervous to try it because it gets really, really hot and I was just nervous that I was going to hurt myself. But here it is. It has a little stand. I was just kind of figuring it out and just wanted to show that to you. I was like, I don't know how this works, but I figured it out. That will hold it off your surface when it is hot. It comes with all of these little different tips and it gives instruction on how to change them. I will be doing that the next time I use it. It shows you what tips are good for what purpose. I have another one of these wood crosses from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just using my pencil to write out "He lives." You can use a stencil if you want, or you can just freehand it, but I thought it'd be helpful for me to have something to trace. So I heated it up per the instructions. Be very careful. This thing gets very hot. Now this is my first time using it. I thought it came out good. It didn't come out great. This first portion here is real time. I just wanted you to see that I was taking my time, and then I will speed it up for the rest of it. I went back over a couple of spots to kind of thicken it back up. I think I needed a different tip for what I was using, but I had so much fun with this. I will definitely be trying this out on some other wood pieces in the future. And I didn't center the words exactly right, but it's okay. I had fun trying this. So I just decided to write "He lives." That is what Resurrection Sunday is all about. And I'm going to cut off the little twine that it comes on because we're going to make ourselves a beaded garland. I have these natural beads and some white beads that I previously painted. I don't know where they came from. I picked them up at Hobby Lobby or Walmart. You can buy plain natural wood beads from Hobby Lobby after Christmas clearance is where I picked up some. Anyways, we're just threading on our beads here. I just am tucking in the end of the tail that I had near the cross up a few of the beads, and then I'm just going to thread in a tassel. This is one I had previously made, so I don't have a tutorial on here. Using that little sharp crooked tool from Dollar Tree comes in handy even if you don't have a Cricut. I pulled that twine right through, but there's lots of videos on there on the internet for how to make a tassel. I already had one made, so I wasn't going to just remake one for the video. And that's all there is for this little beaded garland. It's super simple, and I had a lot of fun trying out my wood burning tool. Let me know if you have a wood burning tool. For our last DIY, I have another one of these wood crosses from Hobby Lobby. They come in a great big pack, so you can get lots of DIYs out of one pack. And this floral moss from the Dollar Tree. Yes, moss is messy. That's why I've got it inside of a plastic bag here, like a Ziploc bag, not just the bag it came in. But we're going to cover our cross with some of this moss. It's worth it to me. The mess is worth it to me. I'm just putting a bunch of hot glue and then just grabbing big chunks of the moss, applying it there. Be careful because it can come through and burn your fingers. But I find that if I just use like a lot of it and then I can like clean up the extra afterwards, I don't usually have any problems. But put on some finger protectors or use a low temp glue gun just to be safe. And we're just going to cover it. We're going to trim it up and make it look like a cross again here in a second. Right here, we're just going to trim that off once I have everything covered really good and kind of bring the shape back a little bit. I didn't want to overly trim it. I liked the kind of rough, rustic look to it, but I did need to help bring back a little bit of shape to this. And then I scoop up all that extra moss, put it back in the bag, and you can reuse it in the future. I had this wood slice in my stash. If you don't have something like this, you could use an old sign, a scrap of anything. If you needed to paint it, you could, just anything. And I'm just hot gluing that to the center. But I happen to have the wood slice and I love that rustic look. And that's all I did, just glue that to the center. And I thought this would be a nice little accent piece or for the tiered tray or something like that. Really, really simple and fun DIY to do.
Well, friends, that is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. That helps me out so much. Let me know you were here by saying hello down in the comments or just leave me an emoji so that I know you were here. And if you are new, please consider subscribing before you leave so you don't miss out on my future videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.